Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Nick Watts, and welcome to another episode of College Football Under Review, a show made by a football fan for football fans everywhere. And on this glorious day, we have some glorious topics. The first one is that I have the pleasure to discuss the potential return of the PAC. Yes, that's right. The Pac-12 might be returning. We're going to go into that more. I'm very psyched to talk about this. And next on the episode, we'll have some will they questions I have for this 2025 season to kind of put some discourse in the audience's head. And I'm also going to give my ideal playoff format and how I would personally go about the postseason. And at the end of every episode, we should know that there's going to be something I have to get off my chest. So with our first order of business on the show, this is personally a topic and conversation of a sweet, cherished, and glorious aspect of college football that they almost killed and ostracized from our glorious silver screens. That topic, as I stated earlier, is the Pac-12. Yes, the seemingly doom of irrelevancy that loomed over the conference seemingly has new light as more teams have joined the cause to bring back the PAC. Not this season, but potentially next season. And those teams are Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Utah State. Dang, talk about all the states, am I right? Now, all of these teams and programs have filed their intent to leave the Mountain West Conference, according to multiple reports, and join Oregon State and Washington State for another conference realignment. When will it ever end? We may never know. Even though not all of these teams are really considered big contenders, you at least have Boise State joining the ranks, who made the college playoffs last season and almost had a Heisman winner in Ashton Jeanty, who was a phenomenal player. And the Boise State head coach is going to be, I think, possibly returning to the playoffs, but we'll see what happens with this new seeding format. But still get that fifth automatic qualifier. I know the top two teams are going to be Boise State and Tulane to try and fight for that potentially group of five playoff spot. And with these five teams all coming into the Pac-12, I feel the sense that the same charm and regionality that the original Pac-12 once had seems to be staying within the conference, which I believe is a plus and something I really like to see. I think the only other conferences that really have regionality still are the SEC, and I mean that's only because they're almost all in the Southeast except for Texas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. Missouri, a lot of people argue, is Missouri a southern state or not? If they're in the SEC, they're southern in my books. But I think also with regionality and keeping that, these teams will be able to save more money from travel fees. And that's especially nice as a not new conference, but they're rebolstering the ranks of the Pac-12. And it's smart to save as much money as you can in this rebuilding process. Because the previous teams in the Pac-12 that have gone through conference realignment, they have to travel over potentially 3 time zones from Pacific all the way to the Atlantic time zone. And it just doesn't seem sustainable, at least they're obviously making more money in these other conferences in their eyes. I still argue that the Pac-12 shouldn't have disbanded as their last season, not the 2024 season. The 2023 season, my bad. They did such a great job in those first 6 weeks that they really could have gotten a good TV deal based off of their performance in those 6 weeks and kind of leveraged a TV deal, kept it together. But that's just something that I wish would have happened. I'm not a businessman, just a guy with a mic and a podcast. I'm a content creator, But I do think that a lot of these games that they have to cross multiple time zones to get to does hurt their team and their morale just in their conditioning week in and week out. And with the addition of all these Mountain West schools joining next year, that makes the conference 7 teams strong, counting Oregon State and Washington State. Yes, I know, crazy. Someone from Alabama can actually do math. Wild. But they are still one short of the number required to be considered a FBS institution as a conference. So they're still looking for that one team. We'll see if they find someone in the Mountain West or, someone in the region. But for now, the Pac-12 has seemingly, as it looks right now, survived against all odds since all of these teams left, and it was Oregon State and Washington State like, hey, we're still going to be in it. We're still going to keep the tradition going. And I honestly am surprised that they have been able to get the Pac-12 back up and running, or at least have momentum going into this next season to return to the college football landscape. And it'll personally be interesting if because I don't think they're going to be considered we're going to go back from Power 4 or we're going to go from a Power 4 back to a Power 5. Because it's interesting. It's only one of these teams have made the playoff, and that's Boise State, and they lost. But it'll be interesting to see if they can potentially be considered a Power 5 moving forward in a couple of years, or if they're just going to stay as this group of, technically now it's group of 5, but group of 6 once the Pac-12 is added. A lot of people just aren't considering Pac-12 a actual conference right now because of the 8 teams needed to be an official FBS conference. And something that I find very funny that really goes unnoticed by a lot of fans in the sport is that the Pac-12 still has a $100 million Rose Bowl contract that is still going on. But that does end this upcoming season. And you may say, oh, well, what does that mean? Well, it means that last season, Oregon State and Washington State, being the only 2 in the conference, split that $100 million to receive $50 million each. So they obviously had these 2 years, last season and this season, to figure out the future and structure of the conference. And it makes a lot of sense why they stayed together. They wanted $200 million to be split $100 million over these next 2 years. And that's really going to help their program. It makes a lot of sense why they didn't just leave and why they stayed. And obviously they're going to try and bring back the conference. And so I think it was nice that they did have 2 years to sit down together and say, okay, we're going to get $100 million each these next 2 years, and we have to figure out what's next after that. I don't know if there's much room for any of the other conferences to accept them. They are really small markets, and especially Washington State, it's a very small market. And I think it's smart that they are just trying to get from the Mountain West and keep the regionality together. And even though, I'm going to state this again, the majority of these teams entering the conference may not pose an immediate threat to the playoff race, I still love the idea and ambiance and fully embrace what the Pac-12 displays in college football, because we really can't forget what they took from us. 2 of my favorite arguments against why I love the Pac-12 is the late night slate when every other game was over in the South and East, and everything kind of, all the big games from 3:30 and even 6:30 kind of winded down. We had this midnight madness that gave us thrillers late into the night with the Pacific time zone, and that allowed for a interesting like time slot. Obviously, you're not going to get as many people as like a 3:30 game because everyone's awake. Probably by the time it's 9, 10, or 11, people have probably had too much to drink or they're just too tired after cheering on their team. But I still thought it was a lot of fun. You know, you turn off, or you don't turn off the TV because obviously you're going to watch the Pac-12, but these other games finish and you're like, well, I still want to watch college football. I don't want to see recap. And you turn on, you go, oh, the Pac-12's still going. Let's turn it on. And every time I personally turned on those games, I felt like there was a lot of high-powered offenses that gave us a lot of iconic moments, games, and players since Utah and Colorado joined that Pac-12 conference in 2011. Just there have been so many great players and great teams. Even the Colorado State game, 2 years ago? I remember all the games had finished. It was a long day of watching college football. And I was like, we still got more. We got Colorado State. And it was one of the most fun games to watch. And Deion Sanders took that team to be 4-0, and then the rest of the season dismantled. But it was still a lot of fun going late into the night, watching these close games and just seeing a different culture being the West Coast and some of the mountain time zones. It just provided so much fun and something that I really want to return and see, especially with this regionality. I know I've probably beaten that word into everyone's head right now, but I still think it's a really cool aspect and something that gives the Pac-12 separation and identity with these other conferences that have just absorbed teams like the ACC, Big Ten. Gotta take a sip of water before this next topic. But that's my whole idea and thought process and why I love the Pac-12, why I'm excited for it, and why I'm happy that I was able to discuss the potential return for next season of the Pac-12. And in the offseason, we'll see what their restructuring fully looks like and how they are adapted into this college landscape. And so for the conclusion of this topic, I just want to say I hope everyone listening is excited as I am that the Pac-12 may potentially return to the limelight in college football, as it really doesn't have that same oomph as it used to. It's still back, and let's bring back the Pac. Put it on a shirt. I mean, put it on banners everywhere. Bring back the Pac. I'm that passionate about it. So when this Pac-12 left and almost disbanded, I thought to myself, will they ever come back? And as it seems hopeful, I thought, I've got some more questions for the 2025 season of some will they. So I was putting this together and I pushed it off from last week's episode because I had so many that I wanted to narrow down and really try and figure out some of the big will they questions coming into the season that I personally am interested in, and wanted to narrow down and pick some of the good ones. Some of them are funny, some of them are, serious questions, and some of them are trends that we have seen that we need to ask, will they happen in this 2025 season? So the first will they question we have is, will Brian Kelly and LSU once again lose in week 1 of the season? For me personally, I'm going to say yes. I know LSU is supposed to have this better team, even though they lost the number 1 recruit, Bryce Underwood, who went to Michigan, the quarterback, in the middle of the season, just slipped through their fingers. And as much as, Brian Kelly is the winningest active head coach in college football right now, it's a pattern that he hasn't been able to escape. Just like when he was at Notre Dame, he didn't have the best postseason and bowl record as these other coaches. And I think they're playing Clemson at Clemson. And in last episode, I put that as one of our week 1 best matchups, called it the Battle for Death Valley, as they're both basically going up against each other. They're both Tigers, and they both have the name Death Valley for their stadium. Now, for me personally, LSU's Death Valley, I've been in that stadium personally, and it is one of the most intimidating places I have watched a college football game. And you step in and you're just like, wow. For Clemson, we're going to see if they can bring that same energy with their fans. And I think Dabo is going to have this really good team. And both Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterbacks for both of these teams, I just think Cade Klubnik last season wasn't that good, and I feel like he's probably developed a little bit more. Garrett Nussmeier, I thought he was a really good and smart quarterback because he had one of the fewest sacks last season as a quarterback, but I think that was just because LSU's offensive line was so stout and good. And I don't think that their offensive line is still going to be good, but not as good as last season. I think Garrett Nussmeier has this pressure on him of he needs to prove something. So in this first will they question, will Brian Kelly and LSU once again lose in week 1 of the season? I'm going with yes. I think Clemson really needs to make the statement of we are back, Dabo Swinney's back, and we are here to make a run in the national championship. And I think they are putting way too much into it. And I just don't trust Brian Kelly and his coaching ability. That's just me, but I'd like, while we go through this, you can write down, in your opinion, yes or no on each of these questions that you ask. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just here to provide discourse. And the second question is, will Brent Venables be fired from Oklahoma if they have another subpar season? For me personally, I say no. He came into the SEC with Texas, and Texas has one of the easiest SEC schedules for last season and this season. Oklahoma has one of the toughest SEC schedules, maybe the toughest. They play all the top tier teams, and even Texas because the Red River rivalry. And I think Brent Venables, even if he has a subpar season, which subpar for me is like, they go barely above 500. I still think he's going to be able to convince Oklahoma to let him stay and just argue, hey, I've done a little bit more. We had a tough season. Next season, our schedule should be easier. And that's why I don't think they would fire him if they had another subpar season. Number 3 is, will Ryan Day return to the college football playoff this year? Simply put, I am going to say yes on this one, even though, obviously it's going to be favorable to say yes. He won the national championship last year, but he did lose a lot of players, but he still has a great high-powered offense, and I love Julian Sayin, their quarterback, even though he's only taken about 12 throws in actual games. I think he is going to be a great quarterback, and I definitely think Ryan Day will return to the college football playoff. And next is, will Deion Sanders and Colorado continue to improve this season? And I'm going to argue and say, yes, I think Deion has a favorable schedule throughout the season, even though he lost Travis Hunter, the Heisman, and his 2 sons. I still think that Deion is going to have continued success and improve Colorado, maybe win their first bowl game. He lost the bowl game last year, but I still think Deion is trending upwards, and we haven't seen him hit that plateau yet. And next, sorry, I had to check if I was recording my mic, just a little superstition. And next is, will Lane Kiffin finally make the college football playoff? This is a very easy question, but I think it's still one because he seems to be on the precipice of that playoff debut. He just hasn't gotten there yet. And I'm going to say no. I think if he was going to do it, it was going to be last year. He had such a great team, and that loss to Kentucky really just messed up their entire season and chance to get to the playoff. And he lost Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart was a first-round draft pick. He's great. Lane Kiffin knows how to recruit players, but it seems like he puts an emphasis on portal over progress. He's able to get these great players, but I don't know if they fit his scheme and mesh as well as he would like them to. But I just think if he was going to get into the playoffs, it was going to be last year. I honestly hope he proves me wrong on this one. I personally like Lane Kiffin. He's had such a redemption in his college football coaching career, and I personally just like his energy and what he brings to the world of college football. And next question, will more than 3 Georgia players get arrested based on reckless driving charges? And I'm going to go out here, maybe surprising. I'm going to say no. I think that over this offseason, at least in these last few months, no drama has come out of that. I personally haven't been checking the state of Georgia and the Athens County, jail and all their mugshots. But I think Kirby not making a real run at all last season in the playoffs needs to make a good run, and he needs to fall back and think on, okay, I got to handle these players and make sure they don't do anything stupid, because if they do something stupid and keep up these reckless driving charges and endangerment and DUI, and he's not performing at the level he should be, the fan base might turn on him a little bit. I don't think too rabid at first, because he's done so much for the program. He's given them 2 national championships when they had a 40-year drought. So it might take a little bit, but the reporters might start to say, hey, what's going on here, Kirby? So I'm going to say no. I don't think more than 3 Georgia players are going to get arrested on reckless driving charges this season. Can't say anything until after the playoffs happen, and who knows, something crazy might happen. And this next question, will Gus Malzahn revive FSU's offense this season? He just came in to help Mike Norvell and revive what they had missed out on last season. I think with the Boston College quarterback transfer, Nick Castellanos, I think Gus Malzahn is going to have a field day, and yes, he will revive this FSU offense. Like I have stated earlier, I was an Alabama fan. He created so much trouble for Alabama with his no-huddle offense and fast-paced offense, and I think that is going to complement Nick Castellanos so well, who is such a great scrambler and dismantled FSU's defense last season when he played them in Tallahassee. So I think, yes, Gus Malzahn will definitely revive FSU's offense this season. Next question, will 2 group of 5 teams reach the playoffs this year? Simply, no. It would really have to be something like a Tulane season when they beat USC in, I believe it was the Cotton Bowl 3 years ago. That is the only thing I really see. We just need 2 really almost undefeated seasons or 1 loss to a close game that is another ranked group of 5 team, or, a top 10 power 4 team that they lost a 1 possession game to. Outside of that, it's so difficult now with this world of college football and the seeding, though I do think the straight seeding format doesn't really do much for teams outside, more or less how the playoff is structured. I think there is a slight chance, but I just don't think two group of 5 teams will reach the playoffs this year. I think there are too good of power 4 teams, and I think a lot of these teams are not going to see a lot of upsets like last year. So I'm going to have to say no, I don't think 2 group of 5s will reach the playoffs this year. Will the Big Ten send another team to be represented in the national championship game? We have had Ohio State and Michigan win the national championship the last 2 years. bitter rivals. And that's kind of tough for Michigan fans because I don't know how you come back and say we won a national championship when your rival wins it the next year. It stinks, but at least you've beaten them the last 4 years. And I'm going to say no. I think that the ACC and Clemson and SEC have really good teams. And Penn State is really like pushing forward the narrative of this is our season. We almost got to the national championship last year. We're going to make it this year. I just think James Franklin's going to fall short again. Other than Lane Kiffin, I personally don't really care that much for James Franklin. I think he's a great coach, but I personally don't have any connection to him. And I just don't think that this is the Big Ten's year. I think that with the straight seeding format, I think the Big Ten schools are going to knock each other out. We saw it with Oregon and Ohio State with how the seeding ended up. And I just don't know if we're going to see another Big Ten. I know that's a bold claim because they have won the last 2 national championships, but I just don't think that they are going to do it this year. I really think the ACC or 2 SEC teams might be in it, and that's a big stretch, but I think Texas is going to take one of those spots, and that leads me to the next question. Will Texas make the national championship under Arch Manning this year? I think yes. The Legion of Arch, the era of Arch, the momentum that Arch brings is so much that I think Texas will make the national championship this year. Steve Sarkisian is such a great offensive mind, and him with Arch Manning is going to be dangerous to stop. Last year, they could have kept in Arch Manning, but I think you should have given Quinn Ewers the time to finish out the season. He was their guy. I think it was the right thing to do, and I liked that coaching decision by Steve Sarkisian, even though they may have lost the game. But I think it was the right thing to do. But I do believe that Arch is a great quarterback. I think he's going to lead this team to great heights. And I don't think he'll leave for the draft after the season if he has a great season. But that's another question, a will they question for at the end of the season. Let's say that. Will Louisville or Georgia Tech make the ACC championship game this year? I know Louisville is a big favorite to make the ACC championship this year. Georgia Tech, not as much, but I really do love Georgia Tech. And I think, yes, one of them will. Clemson and Miami are obviously the 2 heavy favorites, but I do believe that one of these 2 teams can shake up the conference outlook and take one of those spots, and whether it's Clemson or Miami, I personally think that one of these 2 teams can and will make the ACC championship game this year. It's a big question on ACC fans' minds. Louisville made it 3 years ago. Georgia Tech hasn't made it in a while, but even Miami missed out on the ACC. And even though SMU is looking really well, I just don't think they are going to have the same impact as they did last year. So that's just my thoughts on the ACC championship race. Got to get some more water. So, will Bill Belichick have a plus .500 season in his first year of coaching? That's basically saying, is he going to have more wins than losses or the same of wins and losses? I think yes. The ACC is kind of rising a little bit more than the Big 12, in my opinion, competition-wise. But I think Bill Belichick, even if he doesn't have all the players and chess pieces he wants in that offense, he is one of the best coaches that knows how to prepare his team for the upcoming game in the week. And so I strongly do believe that he will have a not majorly successful season, but will start the trend upwards for the University of North Carolina. He was the discussion in our first episode, our inaugural episode. He is a fun person to watch. He is going to be a lot of fun to keep up with. And off the field, that's whatever. I don't really care about that as much. We're here to care about college football and what happens in the season. He is going to be a great coach to watch and see how he progresses throughout the year with this team. And our next question is, will a quarterback win the Heisman this year or a skill position player? And I'm going to outright say quarterback. Last year it wasn't. It was a skill position player. But I think there are so many good quarterbacks this year, and I think that if Arch Manning doesn't get injured, I think there's going to be so much propaganda that Arch Manning's going to win the Heisman. But I think there are so many good quarterbacks that can make a legitimate Heisman run this year. And the only two skill position players that are kind of up in the air are Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver at Ohio State, and Ryan Williams, wide receiver at Alabama, and maybe Singleton with Penn State as a running back. But I just think there's more quarterback talent in this year of college football than there was this previous season. Obviously, not that many quarterbacks went in the draft. And I think this year there is going to be a lot of propaganda. Sadly, to say the truth, the Heisman race has slowly turned into this propaganda fest, and it's really kind of what happens. Some people in the media have gotten a little angry with how the people vote, but I think this last season they did get it right. But that's outside of that. I don't want to go too deep into the Heisman voting and how it all works and the discourse that there has been recently in the last couple of years. Overall, going to state it again, quarterback will win the Heisman this season. Will UCLA be able to utilize Nico Umalave, I probably butchered that, and produce a winning season? I'm going to say yes. I think UCLA will have a winning season. Their schedule is pretty easy and favorable. I think simply they will. With all the drama with Nico, he either is going to prove everyone he was worth the money at Tennessee, or he is a flash in the pan. I think the biggest problem with him is his accuracy deep. Yeah, he can throw some beautiful balls and passes, but there were so many times that teams almost beat Tennessee because Nico could not make simple completions down the field. He overthrew time and time again, and that's probably because he was terrified to turn it over. I would be too if I wasn't the best, and I don't think he is, but I think in UCLA, he will have more fun in that offense, and they have a lot of transfer portal players coming in, and I just think he will play better, and he's probably developed a little bit. He was a top recruit out of high school. We'll just see if he's able to command the locker room and has the team behind him. But it's not hard for UCLA to have a winning season, and I think they'll be able to do it this year. And will one of Carson Beck's cars get stolen again? No, I don't think it will. I think he's got that situation all under control. I thought that was funny story during the offseason, but no, I don't think Carson Beck's car will get stolen. Maybe his playoff chances, though, might get stolen by someone else if he cannot produce a good season. It's another topic for another time. But will Mike Gundy take Oklahoma State to the Big 12 championship game? I'm going to say no. He had a 3-9 season last year. He went 3-0 the first 3 weeks and then just lost every game. Some of them were one possession. A lot of it was Ollie Gordon, the third, their running back, was supposed to be great. Again, he wasn't. I think a lot of teams figured him out pretty easy. But I think there are so many good teams. I think the biggest, if you're looking at it, BYU, Arizona State, Iowa State, Kansas State, those are the top 4 teams in the race for the Big 12 championship game. I think Mike Gundy is definitely going to turn his team around and have a better season than he did last year. He always kind of does that. And there's a reason he's had this coaching job at Oklahoma State for 20 years. And he almost lost it seemingly this offseason. But I think he's going to turn it around again like he always does. But he will not make the Big 12 championship game. Another coach that I hope proves me wrong, but that's just a question that I really think I have the answer for, sadly. And will the season be filled with more upsets, or will the favorites reign supreme in the 2025 season? Last year, we saw so many upsets, but at the end of the season, some of those upsets were probably like, oh, it kind of makes sense now. But I think favorites are going to reign supreme this year. I don't think we're going to see as many upsets as we did last year. This whole conference realignment has finally settled down, at least in the Power 4 conferences. And I think the favorites will reign supreme just with another year under NIL. I think we're kind of getting to a point of patterns, and slowly we're going to see these favorites continue to win, and it's not going to be a crazy, almost 2007-esque type season. If you don't know that reference, 2007 college football season is arguably one of the wildest college football seasons ever to be had. You should definitely look into it. There's a lot of great YouTube videos on it. And our last question, will they question for the 2025 football season? Will anyone be fired in the middle of the 2025 football season? I think there are a lot of coaches on the hot seat, and if things really go south really quick, I think we will see someone be fired midway into the season. Some of these coaches could be someone like Mike Gundy. I don't think Hugh Freeze, maybe Mike Norvell, maybe Billy Napier. I don't know. We'll see. But I do think that there is potential for someone to be axed in the middle of the season. It'll probably be one of these coaches not too far in their tenure at these schools. But I just think there are a lot of easy schedules with teams, and there are a lot of difficult schedules with teams. And I think one of these middle of the pack schedules couple of one possession games could turn sour. Look at Nebraska, that could also happen, but we'll see. Got to get some water. But some of these will they questions may appear again as a category next offseason, or may make a return in another episode before the season starts up to provide more food for thought. And so while those will they questions are over, and that was a fun little segment, we are obviously in the lull before the season, and as more news hits the ground running, I've spent some time to reflect and think about what kind of playoff format I would personally like to see. So many people in the media have probably done this one time in their career on the screen when all the playoff expansion talk was happening and up in the air when we went from 4 to 12. And as it's probably been beaten with a dead horse about a year or two ago, guess what? I've got the mic this time. I've got the screen in front of me, and I am going to be saying what's on my mind, okay? Now, on my mind is, as much as I would like to go back in time and just stay with the BCS format, I personally would. And it would be my preferred postseason format. I thought it gave us the two best teams. There was no argument against it. The New Year's 6 games actually held weight and had this great tradition and some of these great matchups that we would see year in and year out. And it made the season so competitive and so urgent to win every game every week. even though it did make a lot of games irrelevant in November, the college football regular season has one of the best regular seasons in all of sports year round. And for this format, I will attempt to work with the current 12-team format and also provide a caveat for if we go to a 16-team option if we get there in the near future, because I don't want to be boring and it wouldn't be any fun if I just said, oh, I just want the BCS format. So here we go into my ideal playoff format. So what I kind of want to see is in the BCS, we had a computer format that would put 5 different polls, put them together, and that would be your BCS computer rankings. And I want to kind of go about that in the same way and have 5 different polls that mix in for the criteria in this computer format for seeding. So yes, I do not want a playoff committee to vote on these teams. I want it to be a computer. We have gotten so sophisticated in the future with where we were in the BCS, and computers have advanced so much. I think that this is a smart way to go about it, and it leaves no room for interpretation. And the 5 different polls that I would have for this computer criteria in mixing them together would be: first, we would have a coaches poll. 2, we would have the Associated Press poll, the AP poll. 3 would be the old 5 computer format for that is the BCS poll. So yeah, there's the original BCS format that would be in the 3rd one. 4th would be a strength of schedule combined with points for and points against, and use computers to figure out that ranking. And then the 5th one would be strength of schedule combined with wins and losses, again, in a computer ranking. And the strength of schedule for the last 2 would not be strength of schedule at the beginning of the year. It would constantly be updated. And at the end of the season, we would have our true strength of schedule. So those are the 5 criterias that all combine in a computer to give us the, I guess, playoff poll, the under review playoff poll. That's what we're going to call it. The under review playoff poll would be the new and revised BCS format, but those are my 5 criterias into it. And some of the big other side notes to it would be no automatic qualifiers would be included with this 12-team format. We're choosing the 12 best teams. That's it. That's the argument. And these computers would give us our official seeding order, and the first 4 teams would still receive a bye. I think if you have a great season and you have fought the whole season and you have a right to be in that top 4, you should get a bye. I know in our previous episodes, we have discussed whether or not the byes were helpful or not, but I think overall they can be helpful. And one more thing is there would be no home field games in the first round, and there would be no home field advantages, as I would want the bowl landscape and all of the bowls to have the ability to bid and host a game for the first round, to give smaller bowl games the chance to put up money to still be relevant and still have a chance to have these big team markets come to their bowl games. So that's an argument I have. And then obviously the next round going forward, it would be the New Year's 6 bowls. But that first round, I would want to see all these bowls be able to bid, put up money, and that money would then go to the schools that would make it in the playoffs. Now, if we did move in the future to a 16-team format, I would include the top 6 ranked conference champions as automatic qualifiers, not 5, not 4. I want Power 4, and I want more Group of 5, so we would get that extra one, and then we would have the top 10. best teams. And you may say, well, why are you going to put 6 automatic qualifiers if it goes to 16 and not have any automatic qualifiers for 12? And for me, that's just the size of the pool. If it's going to be that big, I want to guarantee that there are 2 group of 5 schools in it and not just one. And the top 10 teams are going to get in. And obviously, probably 4 of those being the Power 4 teams were probably already in the top 10. But I personally think with 16, we do need a representation of more of the nation in mind. And so that's why I would have 6 automatic qualifiers for the 16 team. And overall, with this ideal playoff format, there has been a lot of recent discourse by some coaches and athletic directors questioning whether or not we need a playoff committee. And some have said, why not take it back to computers as they've evolved? And I agree, they have evolved to such a degree that I think it is pertinent and smart to go about it this way. And it leaves, like I said earlier, no room for interpretation. It gives us a clear cut. It's not humans making a decision, because humans are flawed. I'm going to say that all the time. And I think a computer with this would work out. I thought the BCS format, no room for interpretation. I'm going to continue saying that because it really did give you the top 2 teams based on statistics. And I know that there can be some teams that are like, oh, but their quarterback just got injured. Then how is that going to happen? No, that doesn't matter that their quarterback got injured. They went undefeated and they got kicked out of the playoffs because a 1-loss team had a harder strength of schedule. That just leaves room for interpretation. And that's why it's pertinent that we need to have a computer do it. And I'm going to say that again, the coaches poll, AP poll, BCS poll, strength of schedule combined with points for and points against on the season, and strength of schedule combined with wins and losses over the season. And so I'd like to hear your comments, and you can comment below, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube, what you would want to see your playoff format look like, or if you agree with my playoff format, or if there's anything you would want to tweak with my college football under review poll. But I had a lot of fun putting that together. I really thought about it all week. And as much as the BCS was a little flawed, I think this would be a smart way to go about it. And with that out of the way, there's something I got to get off my chest. And we're talking playoffs. Playoffs? Yeah, we're talking playoffs. And it's not college football playoffs. What? This off my chest isn't about college football? No. I want to get this off my chest and say, put the question out there. Is the college baseball and softball World Series underrated as a college postseason format and just postseason in general? So this weekend, we saw Texas win the Women's Softball World Series. And the college baseball World Series hasn't hit yet. We're in the Super Regionals. But every year this comes around, it happens late May, early June, and it feels like it almost gets slid under the rug. You know, you've already got MLB going on. You've got the NBA Finals going on around this time. You've got the Stanley Cup going on at this time. And I feel like the World Series for college sports and college baseball and softball get pushed under the rug a little bit. And this is like when some of the best college baseball is shown. It's high scoring. There's barely any low scoring games. You've got these egos of these college baseball kids that are hilarious. You've got so many small schools that are able to go into this tournament and upset teams like in March Madness, but it happens, I feel like, more often than not in this format. And the atmosphere that college baseball has is so underrated. It's so much fun to go see personally. I'm from Birmingham, and I love every chance I get to go to the SEC baseball tournament in Birmingham at the Hoover Met and watch that. It's such a great time. And I do believe college baseball and softball World Series is completely underrated. And I encourage everyone to watch the college baseball World Series. If you watch the softball World Series, good for you. It just ended sadly, but please and go watch the baseball World Series. I love college sports in general and want to support any other college sport that I can. Obviously, this is a college football show, but while there is no college football to watch other than some highlights, and I personally watch them, go watch the college baseball World Series. You are not going to regret how much fun you're going to enjoy watching it. And at the end, hopefully it's a rewarding experience. But that's something that I got to get off my chest. Watch the college baseball World Series. And it is underrated as a postseason. So much fun. Double elimination. It doesn't get any more exciting than that as a postseason. Knowing that your team could lose at any moment in that elimination game. And it puts so much pressure, and it creates such a competitive atmosphere that you rarely see anywhere else. So, with all our topics out of the way, I know the long-awaited House versus NCAA settlement case has been a hot topic in our show, and they finally came out with the verdict on Friday, and there was a lot of discussion yesterday, and official news sources came out with more information on it. I really did want to talk about it in this episode, but I really want to spend more time doing more research and thinking about how this can affect the NIL landscape and college football landscape in the long run. So with that being said, I plan on putting out a video in the middle of the week going over the settlement, and will provide my thoughts as well as accurate reporting of the settlement. I didn't want to just put something together super quick. I want to give my audience the most accurate and thoughtful insight into this case, as it is a turning point in college sports for the world of NIL. Next week, we are going to be taking a look at some of the patterns and statistics that coincide with the past national champions in next episode. And I might include some of the teams that I believe have a chance to reach the title game. Another topic on next week's episode is going to be a discussion of who could be, or already is America's teams going into this 2025 season that the nation seems to be rooting for as a whole. And obviously, we are going to discuss any relevant news concerning college football, and will also be represented on the Watts whiteboard. But with all of that, and with this glorious day, I'm going to say it again, bring back the PAC. And I'm Nick Watts, and thank all of you for tuning into this episode. And we'll see you next time when we take more college football under review.